It's such an honor and pleasure to be here today. I feel extra happy when I'm here looking out the Bay Bridge because when I first came from Sweden to the US, I came to right over there for grad school. So I think the book that got me invited here was this one about AI, and I'm honored that you felt that I was a big thinker because I have come here because I want you to think big, really big. Even though my technical research at MIT these days is on AI, my background is in physics, so when I say really big, I mean like cosmic big. So let's begin on this scale. After 13.8 billion years of cosmic history, our universe has woken up and become aware of itself. From a small blue planet, like tiny conscious parts of our universe, it began gazing out into the cosmos with telescopes, discovering something humbling. We've discovered that our universe is vastly grander than our ancestors imagined, and that life itself appears to be an almost imperceptibly small perturbation on a seemingly lifeless, dead universe. But we've also discovered something inspiring, which is that the technology that we're developing has the potential to help life flourish like never before. Not just for centuries, but for billions of years. And not just on Earth, but throughout much of this amazing universe. I think of the very earliest life as 1.0, because it was really dumb, like bacteria, unable to learn anything during its lifetime. I think of us humans as life 2.0 because we can learn, which we in nerdy geek speak might think of as installing new software into our brains, like languages and job skills. Life 3.0, which can design not only its software but also its hardware, of course doesn't exist yet. But perhaps our technology has already made us life 2.1, with artificial knees, pacemakers, and cochlear implants. So let's take a closer look, all right, at our relationship with technology. Raise your hand if you saw the Apollo 11 launch live. Oh, I'm so jealous. I was only 2 years old. This moon mission was both successful and inspiring because it showed that when we humans use technology wisely, we can accomplish things that our ancestors could only dream of. But there's an even more inspiring journey, propelled by something more powerful than rocket engines, where the passengers aren't just 3 astronauts, but all of humanity. So let's talk about our collective journey into the future with artificial intelligence. My friend Jan Tallinn likes to point out that just as with rocketry, it's not enough to make our technology powerful. To be truly ambitious, which I think is the theme of today, we also have to figure out how to steer it and where we want to go with it. So let's talk about all three now for artificial intelligence: the power, the steering, and the destination, beginning with the power. So intelligence, artificial intelligence. What is intelligence anyway? I define it very inclusively as simply the ability to accomplish goals. The more complex, the more intelligent. And I give this very inclusive definition because I want to include both biological and artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence, I'm defining as simply non-biological intelligence. And I want to be this inclusive because I want to avoid this silly carbon chauvinism idea that you can only be smart if you're made of meat. I think the key to the success that we've heard about today in AI is exactly the opposite of carbon chauvinism. It's this idea that intelligence is all about information processing. And it doesn't matter whether the information is processed by carbon atoms in cells in brains, or by silicon atoms in micron-produced devices, or in some other atoms in future technology. It's the information processing itself that matters. I have many colleagues who think that we'll never get really advanced human-like AI because they think intelligence is something mysterious that can only exist in biological organisms like us. That, again, is carbon chauvinism that I want to encourage you to just let go of. This powerful idea that it's all about information processing has led to dramatic progress, as we've heard, both in hardware and in software propelling intelligence. On the hardware side, nobody knows better than you folks at Micron how amazingly memory has gotten about 100 million times cheaper in the last 60 years. And computing itself has gotten a million times cheaper. I sometimes wish that would happen when I went shopping to the prices, because if it did, I could buy all of the world's products and services produced during this entire year for 1/100 of a cent. And we've heard a lot today about fantastic progress also on the software side, specifically to do with machine learning, neural network-powered ideas. And this is all driving artificial intelligence towards new heights. Think about the recent progress. Not long ago, robots couldn't walk. Now they can do backflips. Not long ago, we didn't have the self-driving cars we were just hearing about on the panel. And now we have self-flying rockets. Not long ago, AI could not do face recognition. Now AI can generate fake faces, and it can simulate your face saying stuff that you never said. So watch out. Not long ago, AI was just a research area. Now it can save lives. We've already heard here about how AI can save many of the 40,000 deaths on US highways and many of the 1.2 million lives wasted every year on Earth on the roads, and probably a lot more lives can be saved in healthcare applications by avoiding preventable mistakes. And that's just the beginning, avoiding mistakes. Clearly, if we can use AI to also do better medical science, there is just so much more we can do. Better diagnosis, treatment planning, personalized medicine, as we've heard about, developing new medicines, new medical devices. In terms of what we already have the AI diagnosis matching human expert performance on prostate cancer, on lung cancer, on eye diseases, as we heard about. And another thing to think about is that not long ago, AI could not beat us at the board game of Go, often viewed as the most daunting strategy game of all. Then Google DeepMind's AlphaZero AI took 3,000 years of human Go games and Go wisdom, put it all in the trash, and learned to become the world's best Go player just by playing against itself for 24 hours. And the most impressive feat here was not that AlphaZero crushed human gamers, but that it crushed human AI researchers who had spent decades handcrafting Go-playing software. And AlphaZero also crushed AI researchers in chess, playing 100 games against stockfish. Those of you who played against stockfish know what it feels like to lose in chess. It played 100 games, didn't lose a single one, even won a bunch of against black. Been working on this handcrafting chess-playing algorithms since 1950, all blown away. So all this exciting recent progress really begs the question, which I think the organizers wanted me to come here and ask. We're accelerating intelligence. Listening to all the speakers earlier today, I could really just palpably feel the acceleration. But what are we accelerating toward? Where is this all going to go? First of all, how far is AI itself going to go? On the hardware side, I think it's clear it's going to go very far. We heard about continued optimism despite all the talk about Moore's law ending. I couldn't agree more. Today's smartphones and computers generally compute by shuffling electrons around in 2 dimensions. Well, we heard from Linda how we can do a lot better by starting to go into 3 dimensions. She here just before me. There's so many other things you can do if you're only limited by the laws of physics. There's fantastic startup technology happening, moving photons instead of electrons, promising speed-ups of a factor of 1 million or more at the same power consumption for machine learning applications. And in fact, the ultimate limit there is really only going to be, maybe 1 bit per atom, which we're so far away from. Even what we heard earlier today from Sumit about DNA. DNA uses only about 100 atoms per bit, which is just so much better than what we do in our devices today. And for computing, there's this nice paper by Seth Lloyd showing that the fundamental laws of physics put a limit on how much computation you can do with a kilogram of matter. That's 34 orders of magnitude above where we are today. So don't worry about Moore's law. There's so much room to go. And what about the implications of better hardware and better software for what we can actually do with AI? How far will AI itself go in its capabilities? I think about this question in terms of this abstract landscape of tasks, right? Where the elevation represents how hard it is for AI to do each task at human level, and the sea level represents where AI is today. The sea level is obviously rising as AI improves, so there's a kind of global warming going on here in this task landscape. I think it's okay to talk about global warming here since I'm in California now. So one obvious takeaway from this is that we should avoid careers at the waterfront, which will soon be disrupted by automation. But there's a much bigger question too, isn't there? How far will the water end up rising? Will it eventually submerge all land with AI matching human intelligence at all tasks? This is the definition of artificial general intelligence, AGI, in contrast to artificial narrow intelligence, which is everything we've heard about so far here at this fascinating event here today. And by this definition of artificial general intelligence, people who say, there'll always be jobs that humans can do better than machines, are simply saying that we're never going to get artificial general intelligence. Now, if you think that AGI sounds kind of like crazy science fiction, you need to be clear on the fact that there is something else which sounds like even more crazy science fiction, namely superintelligence. So what's that? Well, if we actually do get artificial general intelligence, then by definition, AI can do all jobs better than humans, including all the tech jobs that people here in this room are doing, including AI design, which means that we can replace all our AI designers by machines and develop much better AGI on a timescale which is no longer limited by the human research and development timescale of years, but perhaps much faster, which raises this very controversial possibility of recursively self-improving AI that rapidly leaves human intelligence far, far behind, producing superintelligence. Now, we need to stop now for a reality check. Is superintelligence just some crazy sci-fi thing which is only discussed by philosophers? I hear this a lot. So I'm going to let you decide for yourselves by taking a listen here to what some people say here on this panel that I moderated at a workshop in California last year, where many of them are absolutely not just philosophers, as you'll see. So let's hear what they have to say. So before I asked if superintelligence is possible at all, according to the laws of physics, now I'm asking, will it actually happen? Yes, no, or it's complicated?
A little bit complicated, but yes.
Yes, and if it doesn't, something terrible has happened to prevent it. Yes.
Probably.
Yes.
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 No?
So, well, aside from Elon joking there, all the other yeses, the third yes, for example, Demis Hassabis, founder, leader of Google DeepMind, gave us AlphaZero, definitely not someone who has no clue about AI. Stuart Russell, AI professor just across the bay there where I did grad school. Bart Selman, AI professor, et cetera, et cetera. So we clearly can't dismiss this as just pure philosophy because some of the best AI researchers on the planet take it seriously. On the other hand, that does not mean it's going to happen, and in particular doesn't mean it's going to happen anytime soon. So we also have to ask this separate question, well, how soon will we get artificial general intelligence, or maybe superintelligence? Here, we have a very genuine scientific disagreement. We have some well-known AI researchers like Rodney Brooks who say, won't happen for hundreds of years. And then we have people like Demis Hassabis from Google DeepMind who are much more optimistic, think it's going to happen sooner and are working hard to try to make it happen. OpenAI, right here in San Francisco, is also trying to build AGI. Recent surveys have shown that most AI researchers actually share Demis Hassabis' optimism. guessing that we are going to get AGI within a matter of decades. So within the lifetime of many of us. I think you guys look quite healthy by and large. So, and this begs the question, well, if that happens, then what? What do we want the role of humans to be if machines can do everything better and cheaper than we can? The way I see it, we face a choice. One option is to be complacent. We can say, nah, let's just build machines that can do everything better than us and not worry about the consequences. After all, if we build machines that make all human beings obsolete, what could possibly go wrong? But I think that would be embarrassingly lame. I think we should be ambitious. I think this is very much the human spirit. So I say, let's be ambitious and envision a truly inspiring high-tech future and figure out how to steer toward it. This brings us to the second part of our rocket metaphor, the steering. We're making AI more powerful, but how can we steer towards a future where this helps humanity flourish rather than flounder? To help with this, I co-founded the Future of Life Institute, as you heard, a small nonprofit whose goal it is for the future of life to exist and be as inspiring as possible. And I love technology. Technology is why 2018 is better than the Stone Age. And I'm really optimistic that we can create a truly inspiring high-tech future if we win the wisdom race, if we win the race between the growing power of technology and the growing wisdom with which we manage it. But this is a difficult challenge because we're going to need to change strategies to win this race. Why? Because our old strategy used to be learning from mistakes. First we invented fire, screwed up a bunch of times, then invented the fire extinguisher. First we invented the car, screwed up a bunch of times, and then we invented the seatbelt, the airbag, and all the nice features you heard about on the last panel, and laws saying you shouldn't drive too fast and stuff like this. And it kind of worked out. But technology, of course, relentlessly gets more and more powerful, and at some point it gets so powerful that one mistake is one mistake too many. We don't want to accidentally have a nuclear war with Russia later today and be like, oopsie, let's learn from this mistake and just be a little more careful next time. No, with nuclear weapons, future synthetic biology, and certainly with anything as remotely as powerful as artificial general intelligence, learning from mistakes is a lousy strategy. It's much better to be proactive rather than reactive, plan ahead, and get things right the first time, because that might be the only time we have. Now, you guys are nodding. You might think this sounds sort of obvious, but it is funny, because sometimes people tell me, shh, Max, don't talk like that. That's Luddite scaremongering. But it's not scaremongering. It's what we at MIT call safety engineering. Think about it. Before NASA launched the Apollo 11 mission, they systematically thought through everything that could go wrong when you put people on top of explosive fuel tanks and launched them to a place where no one could help them. And there was a lot that could go wrong. Was that scaremongering? No, that was precisely the safety engineering that ensured the success of the mission. And that's precisely the strategy I'm advocating that we take with very powerful technology such as artificial general intelligence. So to help with this, we've organized conferences. The most recent one was down the road in the Silmar here outside of Monterey last year, where we brought together leading AI researchers and other thinkers to discuss how to grow this wisdom we need to keep AI beneficial. And this last conference produced this list of 23 AI principles, which have since been signed by over 1,000 AI researchers from around the world. And in fact, just the other month was officially endorsed by the legislature of the state of California even. And I want to just tell you about 3 of these principles to give you a flavor. One of them is that we should avoid an arms race and lethal autonomous weapons. And the idea here is very simple. Any science can be used for new ways of helping people or new ways of harming people, right? For example, biology and chemistry are much more likely to be used for new cures or new materials than for new ways of killing people. Why? Because researchers around the world successfully pushed and persuaded their politicians that there should be an international ban on biological and chemical weapons. And that's why today, if someone tells you that they work in biotech, you're going to pretty much take for granted that they're a force for good in the world and developing new medicines, not that they're developing a new bioweapon. And that's exactly the vision that AI researchers very much share as well. We want to make sure that this is a power that's used for good. Another principle from this, it was that we should make sure to avoid extreme income inequality as a result of AI. So the way I see it, if we can dramatically grow the world domestic product by having machines produce almost all the goods and services we need, and we still cannot figure out a way of dividing this vastly enlarged economic pie in such a way that everybody gets better off, then shame on us. Now, raise your hand if your computer has ever crashed. I knew there were a lot of forests in California. That's a lot of hands. Yes, so then you'll appreciate this Asilmar principle, that we should invest a lot in AI safety research. Because as we put AI in charge of ever more infrastructure and decisions, we really have to transform today's buggy and hackable computers into robust AI systems that we can really, really trust. This is obvious to anyone who's working on AI for self-driving cars, and it should be, we need to make it obvious to our politicians also who fund research, because otherwise all this awesome new technology that we're developing can malfunction and harm us or get hacked and be turned against us. And this AI safety research has to include also work on AI value alignment. Because the real threat from artificial general intelligence and superintelligence is not that it's going to turn evil like in silly Hollywood movies, but rather that it's going to turn competent, very competent, and go ahead and accomplish a bunch of goals that are just not aligned with our goals. Think about it. When we humans drove these guys, the West African black rhino, extinct, why did we do it? We didn't do it because we were a bunch of evil rhinoceros haters. No, we did it because we were more intelligent than they, and our goals were not aligned with them. Tough luck for them. So, since AGI is by definition more intelligent than humans, to make sure that we don't put our species in the position of those rhinos if we build AGI, we have to figure out how to make AI understand our goals, adopt our goals, and retain our goals. And finally, what goals should these be? This brings us to the third and final part of a rocket metaphor here, the destination. We're making AI more powerful, trying to figure out how to steer it, but where do we ultimately want to go with it? This is the elephant in the room that still to this day almost nobody talks about because we're so focused on all the important short-term problems. Jobs, weapons, business challenges. But what sort of society are we ultimately hoping to create if we succeed in building AGI, which has been the goal of AI research ever since its inception? So I told you I want to encourage you to think big. And even though my day job is on AI these days, once a physicist, always a physicist, so I can't help myself but unleash my inner physicist a little bit here and think really big for a moment. Because we humans have really been the masters of thinking too small, if you think about it. Again and again and again, we underestimated the size of our reality, thinking that everything we knew about was everything that existed. A planet, a solar system, a bunch of stars, hundreds or thousands of light years away. You know, when my grandma was little, that was everything. That was the universe, just a bunch of stars. They didn't know still. She didn't know that there were other galaxies. Not because she was dumb, but because nobody on Earth knew that there were other galaxies until 1925. This, our Milky Way galaxy with hundreds of billions of stars, that we now know, of course, is just one among a vast number of others in still bigger structures, groups, clusters, superclusters. We're looking here at this map, the biggest three-dimensional map of our universe to date that I had a lot of fun with working to make from in the years with my colleagues on the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, which in turn is part of this even grander structure, our observable universe, or just our universe for short, the region of space from which light has had time to reach us so far during the 13.8 billion years since our Big Bang. So within here, we have hundreds of billions of galaxies, each of which has hundreds of billions, maybe hundreds of billions of solar systems. So it's big, really big. But look how much potential. Now, the more I learned, though, about the size of things, I have to tell you a personal story here of my sort of emotional journey through this. The more I learned about the vastness of things, the more insignificant and small I started to feel that I was and that all of humanity was. Until more recently, I actually made an emotional U-turn that I want to share with you folks, because even though we heard references to science fiction earlier today, and it's hard to watch any kind of Star Wars episode without getting this idea that our universe is teeming with all these other civilizations, some of which are far ahead of us. We actually have not a shred of scientific evidence for that being the case. And we have a mounting body of scientific evidence against it, actually, supporting the evidence that life is so rare that maybe the nearest other civilization that's invented the internet or telescopes might be outside even of our observable universe. So suppose for a moment that that's true. Are we really insignificant? Think about those galaxies we looked at. I think they're beautiful. But why are they beautiful? There's nothing in the laws of physics that says anything about beauty. They are beautiful because we, with our consciousness, experienced them, and we looked at them in our telescopes. There's nothing about purpose and meaning in the laws of physics either. So rather than feeling small and insignificant and sitting around waiting for our universe to give meaning and purpose to us, no, let's realize that it's the other way around. It's us giving meaning to our universe. And let's celebrate that. And let's be ambitious and create more of this sort of meaning. Because if this is the only planet that has telescopes even, then if we do something stupid with our tech and go extinct, the whole universe goes back to just being meaningless, a gigantic waste of space. And boy, what a bummer that would be, right? Another reason why I started to feel small and insignificant was because of time. Because I felt no matter how many vitamins I eat and how much I work out, if I live 100 years, what's that compared to 13.8 billion years? But actually, this is an incredibly special time. If we're alone in our universe, then this is the first time after 13.8 billion years when life has advanced to the point where it actually is on the verge of having the technology sufficient to either go extinct or spread and get throughout and help life flourish throughout the cosmos for billions of years. So we're at this incredible fork in the road. Which way are we going to go? I think a good chance it's going to be decided on this planet, in our lifetime. So suddenly I hope you're feeling a little bit more pumped up here later in the day, feeling that maybe you're not so insignificant after all. And you are a lot more significant even than the average person, because you have so much influence about what's happening with our technology in our world. So I hope you take this as a sort of caffeine substitute to get pumped up and go out and make a difference. Now, so I want you to think big. I want you to feel that we are not insignificant at all here. Let's see a little bit what other people think about this. We did a survey recently asking about 15,000 people what they thought, and most of them actually said they want us to go ahead and build superintelligence. Almost all of them wanted us to be ambitious and help life spread into the cosmos. But now you might, again, get kind of sad and be like, oh no, but yeah, it would be so cool, but it's not going to happen for thousands of years. But I think that's actually an unscientific mistake. Wouldn't it be cool, for example, if we could, if you're feeling a bit crowded here in the Bay Area, if you could have a second home maybe somewhere else in the solar system, maybe in one of these rotating O'Neill cylinders where you get nice artificial gravity and you get a nice 24-hour night and day cycle, thanks to a clever system with mirrors and so on. But surely that's going to take thousands of years, right? Well, if we have to figure out all the technology, invent all the technology ourselves with our intelligence, and we have to build it all by hand. But that is so old school. That's the whole point of artificial general intelligence. If we can build it, we can amplify our own intelligence and have it do so much of the heavy lifting and take a lot of these things which we used to think were centuries or millennia in the future and actually have them happen perhaps quite soon. Perhaps not very long after we get superintelligence. What if you want to go somewhere else? It's another solar system. Even the nearest one is 3-4 light years away, and with today's rocketry, we can't even get there. And if you get there after a few thousand years, you're probably going to not feel so great. But, if we can build AGI, we're not going to be limited anymore by our own intelligence, but by the laws of physics. And they are not very limiting at all. Even human intelligence has come up with clever solutions for getting to the nearest solar system, within a matter of decades. You can have AI-powered robots build a very powerful 26 terawatt laser in orbit around the sun where it gets its energy, send out a nice laser beam, and push this spacecraft to the Alpha Centauri system where it can get and even land gently, in 20 years or something like this. In fact, it feels even less to you because of Einstein's relativity theory. What about going even farther? What if you want to go to other galaxies? This is something where I think science fiction authors have been way too pessimistic, because we are limited by the speed of light. This is our nearest neighbor galaxy, the Andromeda galaxy. It takes 3 million years to get there, even at light speed. And who wants to be like a meat bag in cryosuspension for 3 million years? It sounds boring. But here again, I think we have been too limited in our thinking. If you really reject carbon chauvinism and accept the idea that intelligence and consciousness are all about information, all about information processing, then no meat bags are needed. What's important to me is not my particles, but the pattern in which they're arranged. It's all information. And that's all that has to be sent there. If we've already sent some AI-powered probes earlier to build a little base, if you just want to send a copy of yourself, your DNA, as we heard earlier, from someone, only requires about 2 gigabytes to store. So you can store 100 of your buddies on one of these devices you can buy from a company near you and send it by intergalactic email for reassembly with error correction. And if you want to send all of yourself, by which I mean all the memories and personality traits and everything else is stored in your brain, that's about 100 terabytes, which used to sound like an awful lot when I was a kid, but now I just realized it's only 50 of these. It's 100 terabytes for you. So think big, okay? Not only does life have a great potential in the cosmos if you want to do, but it can even be human life. Now, where it gets trickier is, if we get superintelligence, who or what should be in control? Here there's much less agreement in our poll. And I was kind of amused to see that there are even about 10% here who wanted to be just machines, feeling pretty misanthropic. And there's total disagreement about what the role of humans should be, even at the most basic level. So let's take a look at some options that we could choose to steer towards, okay? And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about space travel here now, despite all my geeky space talk earlier. I'm simply talking about our metaphorical journey into the future with artificial intelligence, all right? So, some of my AI colleagues want us to build superintelligence and keep it under human control, like an enslaved god, disconnected from the internet and used to create unimaginable technology and wealth for whoever controls it. But Lord Acton warned us that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So you might worry that maybe we humans just aren't wise enough to handle that much power. And also, aside from any moral qualms you might have about enslaving superior minds, you might worry about that the superintelligence might outsmart us, break out, and take over. But I also have colleagues who are fine with AI breaking out and taking over, and even causing human extinction. Yeah. As long as we can think of the AIs as our children, as our worthy descendants. But how can we be sure that the AIs have adopted our goals and values and aren't just unconscious zombies tricking us into anthropomorphizing them? And also, shouldn't those people who don't want human extinction have a say in the matter too? Not just some gung-ho tech nerds. And if you didn't like either of those two high-tech scenarios, though, it's important to also remember that low-tech is suicide in a cosmic perspective. Because if we don't go far beyond today's technology, the question is not whether humanity is going to go extinct. The question is simply whether we'll first get taken out by a dinosaur-class killer asteroid or some other calamity that better technology could easily have solved. So how about having your cake and eating it? With superintelligence that's not enslaved, but that treats us well, because we've figured out how to align its goals with ours. This is the gist of what Eliezer Yudkowsky likes to call friendly AI. And if we could pull this off, it could be awesome. It could not only help eliminate all sorts of negative experiences like poverty, disease, and other suffering, but it could also give us the freedom to choose between this amazing new diversity of positive experiences, and really making us the masters of our own destiny. So in summary, our situation with technology is complicated, but the big picture, the really big picture, is rather simple. Most AI researchers expect us to get AGI within decades, and if we just bumble into this unprepared without any planning, it's probably going to be the biggest mistake in human history. Let's face it. It could enable brutal global dictatorship with unprecedented inequality, surveillance, and suffering, and maybe even human extinction, simply because the technology is so powerful that one mistake could be one too many. But if we steer carefully, we can instead end up in an amazing future where everybody's better off. The poor are richer, the rich are richer, and everyone is healthy and free to live out their dreams. But hang on, what sort of future society are we talking about here? Do you folks want a very strict, pious society with rigid moral rules, or do you want more of a hedonistic free-for-all like Berkeley in the 60s or Burning Man 24/7? Well, or do you guys want beautiful bays and forests and lakes, or do you want to rearrange all these atoms into machines creating awesome virtual experiences? With friendly AI, we can simply build all of these futures and let people choose which society they want to live in, because we're no longer going to be limited by our intelligence, just by the laws of physics. So the resources and the space for this will be astronomical, literally. So in summary, here is our choice. We can either choose to be complacent, just take as our new religion this naive idea that all new technology is automatically going to be beneficial, and just repeat this over and over and over again as some sort of mantra as we drift like a rudderless ship towards our own obsolescence. Boring. Or we can be ambitious, thinking hard about where we want to go with our technology and the whole strategy of how to steer it in that direction to create a truly, truly inspiring future. In other words, we've been hearing here today all these fantastic ideas about accelerating intelligence. We all agree that we're accelerating. What do we want to accelerate towards? I would really like to accelerate towards a future that we have thought through a little bit in advance and are excited about going to. In other words, I would like to accelerate towards a future where we make artificial intelligence not that overpowers us, but that empowers us. Thank you.